People are choosing you for a reason. They signed up for your program, they're interested in you, there's a reason in their world that you are important to them. And the trick here is figuring out what they fill in those blanks with, so that then you can turn that around and talk to them about those exact same things in their language, in their world. So it fits in so seamlessly that it doesn't stand out. It doesn't cause them to question what you're saying or reject the message. We're going to talk about acceptance and rejection of messages in a little while, some of the theory stuff that sort of backs all of this up. And the question usually arises, well, okay, so you just said it seems simple, but it's not. How do I do it? That's what we're going to talk about for the next, 35 minutes-ish. Basically, there's 3 key components to the process we're going to go through. Go through them systematically here. The first one is, and they all sound simple, but they have a little bit of a twist to them that are going to really cut to the heart of why this works so well. Then we're going to go through a case study at the end that will actually show you what this looks like in action. We're going to talk and listen. The stuff we do every day, we're just going to do it with a purpose and with some intent to it behind it. Then we're going to interpret what we did when we talked and listened. So we're not just going to talk and listen randomly. We're actually going to take that information and begin to try and connect it out to themes, what we call actionable themes that are out there, and I'll talk about how we get to those in a little while. And then we're going to talk about my favorite part of this whole process, which is transformation. Taking what we talked and listened about, what we interpreted and learned about the audience, and then transforming it out into messaging platforms that actually resonate with those audiences at a later date. Okay? An ongoing sort of conversation and relationship. So let's start with a few of the rules, essentially, that should drive you in terms of the idea of talking and listening. Dave's doing an excellent job of keeping up with me with the slide presentation down there, because I'm going all over the map for him right here. I'm not following the script that I'm supposed to be. A few of the rules that we have sort of acknowledge what's going on about how conversations should sound in these particular cases. You need to make sure that you're talking with folks, not at them. And that seems like a simple change, but it changes, the change there is in your tone of voice and how you speak with them. You prompt, you don't question. You wait and you just sort of listen to what they're saying, okay? And then what you do is you give them a sense of reciprocity in what is going on. So you make a statement and they make a statement back to you, and you actually mirror back to them in that conversation. It's a little different. You have to do a lot of mental energy yourself in order to make this work. And then you listen, you don't assume anything, and that takes a little bit of concentration there, because you have to lift your own biases about the customers and what they think about you off your own shoulders in order to do this effectively. And then finally, something that I think is really important to mention here, because all of you, if you're part of programs, have data already. You probably have lots of data that you have available to you, is that we're looking here to enhance that information. We're not looking to eliminate it. We're looking here to take these conversations and to actually dovetail it into the information that you have existing in your databases, coming in from programs, coming in from those loyalty cards that I was making fun of a moment ago, but we get a lot of really good information from those loyalty cards. There's good things about those programs as much as I said some bad things about them. And we're looking here to enhance that information by understanding what is moving folks behind moving that data into your systems. What is keeping them coming back to the stores or keeping them making the purchases and those types of things. So, what you're going to do there is you're going to move into actionable themes. And what I mean by actionable themes, I hinted at this just a moment ago, is when you have these conversations and you're digging deeper with folks and you're listening intently to what they're saying to you, what you're going to begin to see is they're going to begin to self-segment themselves. And it's always fascinating for me to be in a conversation where this happens, because we've done endless projects around this type of research and this type of understanding of consumers. And at some point in the conversations, suddenly you realize that you see a theme emerging. And it happens naturally and organically when folks talk. It's just how they talk about their worlds. When we were doing a study, and I'll talk a little bit more about it a little bit later, for a self-management education program for type 2 diabetes. They had a problem where they were trying to figure out how to get folks to come in and educate themselves on better health care, essentially. That program served as a feeder into the entire healthcare system, because they knew that type 2 diabetes is also associated with cardiac problems and with other sorts of problems. So they're looking to feed folks into the other systems and create good relationships and loyalty for all those new healthcare needs they're going to have in the future by getting them into the self-management program. Folks weren't showing up. So we sat down and we were talking to these folks who had just been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And as they're talking, suddenly I start to realize, and I'm very flexible in how I sort of run these programs, and suddenly I realized that everybody was bringing a friend to the interviews. And the rule originally was the friend had to sit in the lobby. But then it was like, well, can I bring them in right now? It might be helpful. So we wound up with a lot of husband and wife teams. And just by virtue of the way that the interviews were scheduled, I wound up with a lot, in my interviews, with a lot of husbands with their wives. You know, the husband was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. The wife was their support partner, essentially. And the husband would say something along the lines of, you'd ask him about nutritional information or, you know, their habits, you know, what they think about the diagnosis, those types of things. And the husband would say something along the lines of, yeah, you know, I think I do pretty well. You know, I pay attention to what I eat, and, you know, I'm making some really good changes and very structured and controlled. And the wife, in many cases, you know, would actually slap him on the side of his shoulder and go, no, you don't. Let me just tell you what you really do. Didn't you have that ice cream last night? And didn't I tell you not to buy that candy bar, and then you bought that? And didn't we stop at Bojangles on the way over here? And didn't you get some chicken and some, you know, greasy food and things like that? And they start mentioning these things, and the truth starts to come out. His veneer is broken down, essentially. And so suddenly he says, well, yeah, that's kind of true. And this happened numerous times in the interviews. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I guess I'm not doing quite as well as I probably should be doing. And there was the door for me to open it up and say, okay, why? Why, when you know there are things you're doing that are not, you know, the best thing for your health in this situation, are you not coming to an education program like this? What's going on there? And that actually led to a actionable theme for us in the aggregate at the end, because what we took was that knowledge that support partners, the folks that surround the person with the diagnosis in this particular case, were in some cases more important to message to than the individuals who actually had the diagnosis. The other thing that we learned in the project was that folks, when they were diagnosed, actually went temporarily deaf about anything that you said about diabetes. So the physician would come in and say that you have diabetes, here's your diagnosis, here's some information about the self-management education program, you should head over there, you should do this, X, Y, Z. And after they said the word diabetes, everything was out. Nobody heard, the person didn't hear anything, essentially. And they would claim they didn't have diabetes. I'd have a diagnosis sitting there in front of me, and they'd claim they didn't have it. So that sort of disconnect sort of works in terms of coming out to actionable themes. In that particular case, we talked to them about the timing and how the timing of messaging and who you talk to can be very important in terms of forming understanding about your audience and those types of things.